It's a grim, miserable, rainy autumn's day here in Sydney, Australia, and that makes it the perfect day to share with you these beautiful plants. I'm talking, of course, about the Haworthias. Stunningly beautiful, surprisingly hardy. They're nigh on unkillable, which makes them perfect for beginners. And they're one of those rare succulents that can actually thrive indoors. Today, I'm going to share with you everything that you could possibly want to know about growing these plants successfully. Everything from their soil, to lighting, to how much water to give them, when to water them, even how to propagate them. And I'll share with you some of the more stunning varieties on the market today. So join me now as we go on a bit of a journey into the fantastic world of Haworthias. Now, the first and probably biggest key to success with Haworthias, like this Haworthia argenteo maculosa, is giving them the right soil. And for someone who's coming from different types of plants, what I'm about to say might be a little bit confronting and a little bit strange. But the best sort of soil to put your Haworthias into is going to be a mix that has got almost no organic component whatsoever. What do I mean by organics? I mean, you know, decaying plant matter, bark, mulch, leaf mold, that sort of stuff. You can see here, this is the mix that I'm going to be using today, and it's 100% mineral. Now, the components here don't really matter. All you need is chunky, kind of gritty, coarse minerals. In this case, I've got a bit of scoria, a bit of sandstone, a bit of pumice, a bit of zeolite. But those components don't matter. You don't want to have stuff like smooth pebbles, but whatever coarse, gritty minerals you can get together from wherever you're from, locally, whatever you can get supplied, fantastic. They're going to thrive in it, because these plants, being quite hardy succulents, they don't want their roots sitting in a waterlogged, slow draining soil mix. Absolutely not. It's not going to keep them happy, and there is the chance that they'll rot. But you give them something like this, and they're just absolutely going to go wild for it. Let me show you. This plant here has been growing in an almost entirely mineral substrate for I don't know how many years now. If I take it out of its pot, you'll see just how excited its roots are. Have a look at that. Look at those fantastic thick roots all throughout. Now, this is a plant that desperately needs a repot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this one now into a bigger space, and I'll share it with you using my mineral mix. My mineral mix today is already a little bit moist. A lot of these components can get a little bit dusty, and the last thing I need is to be breathing that in and giving myself long-term health problems. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start just by putting a bit of a backfill, a bit of a layer of that at the bottom of the pot. I don't need like pebbles or anything in the bottom of here. It doesn't really help with drainage anyway. But if you just put a nice layer of that mineral mix for those roots to grow into, we take our underpotted Haworthia argenteo maculosa, chuck it in the top there so it's roughly at about the height of the pot. Then I'm just going to backfill in around the edges, and this guy is going to be able to grow out and bigger and happier for many more years to come. So here we go. A little bit of a shake to even it all up. And just use, you know, you could use like a purpose-built tool for this, but I'm just using the back end of a paintbrush just to tamp down some of that soil around the base. And there you go. Now, if you wanted to, you could top dress that with some sort of mineral as well, but I don't really see the need. Now, that's going to keep that plant growing very happily for many more years to come. And yeah, now hopefully it'll grow a little bit bigger as well. So you've planted up your Haworthia in that gritty, coarse mineral mix. Now you need to know how to water them well. Let's not delay. Let's have a look at that right now. It's autumn here in Sydney, and it's the perfect time to demonstrate this watering process. That's because these plants are actually known as winter growing plants. And what that means is they come from a habitat in southern Africa that gets winter rainfall. They don't generally get much water over the summertime. And that means you shouldn't be watering them too much over summer either. They can withstand a bit of water, but they actually go dormant. And when they're dormant, water isn't going to be very productive to them. They've got processes internally that enable them to conserve moisture, and they won't die even if they don't get any water for 3, 4, 5 months over the hottest part of the year. But when temperatures start to cool down, that's when they love a drink. And I'm going to demonstrate for you right now using this Haworthia truncata. What a cool plant, hey? Look at those flat open windows on the top there. Using this Haworthia truncata as a guinea pig. When you water Haworthias, or really any succulent, what you want to do is water them deeply. So, here we go. And that's what deep watering looks like. Water coming out of the bottom holes of your pot there. Well worth mentioning. You do need a pot with holes in the bottom, otherwise it's all just going to be sitting around in the base, around those roots, and you're just inviting problems. However, Haworthias are actually quite forgiving of mistakes of watering because they have this amazing evolutionary adaptation. What will happen if they get water at the wrong time of the year or too much water at any particular time? Their roots will actually quite literally come off. They'll detach from the plant. It means you might have a wobbly plant sitting on the surface of the soil, but it's not uptaking any water and not causing it any problems. And then what will happen is that when conditions become more favourable to growth, it'll send out new roots into the soil. I see this happen every single year with these guys because I'm too lazy to withhold water over summer when they don't want any. They all get loose and wobbly in their pots, and then finally I'm like, okay, you know what, it's autumn, have a drink, roots go back out into the pots, and away we go. They are incredible survivors and very forgiving of mistakes, and that's why I say that they're fantastic beginner plants over and over on this channel. Now, you do want to make sure that you don't have something like a dish underneath your pot, because that's going to keep those roots very waterlogged, and while they can drop their roots, why take the chance, hey, of inviting fungal infection and rot into your plants? So free draining, especially if you're keeping them indoors. If they're outdoors, water them with a hose. It's a simple thing to do, and away you go. You can have really happy and healthy Haworthias. Now, to illustrate that point about watering, here's a Haworthia truncata that I've been keeping in a very different manner. This one I kept dry all summer, and it looked very sad, shriveled, dehydrated, right back into the soil line. Now that it's autumn, I've started watering it again, and you can see it's starting to firm up, plump up, get back its color. It's much less stressed. I'm looking really, really happy in this habitat staged pot. So it's just an example of how incredibly hardy these plants are. Even if they look a bit sad when you withhold water for a while, they're used to it. They're used to periods of drought in habitat, and they're going to quite happily deal with periods of drought in your collection too. So don't stress too much, and if you can, avoid watering them at the height of summer. When it comes to how much light these plants need, they don't actually need as much light as many of your cacti and succulents that are typically known for demanding that open, full sun environment. These plants have adapted in their habitat to grow in shadier positions. And the reason for that is because they've got this amazing adaptation, which you can see on top of this plant. They've got these windows at the top of their leaves. Haworthia truncata is a great example of it, but you can see it in our others, like this one as well, which typically would grow in a similar way if it was in habitat. Those windows at the top of the plant allow extra light inside the leaves, where all that photosynthesis that keeps plants happy and going can take place. A greater surface area for photosynthesis means it actually needs less light than your typical succulent. And so that means that if I'm keeping these plants, I'm keeping them in a mostly shaded, bright position, Or, like I said, you could keep them on a windowsill inside your house and they'd be happy. Not on the dining table, not next to your office computer. That's not going to be enough. They'll start stretching for light in those instances. But if you can give them a windowsill, if you can give them a nice shady corner somewhere, they're going to absolutely thrive. But the real cool thing is, if you get the light wrong and you give it too much sunlight, will it hurt the plant? No. What it will do is it'll bring out what are called its stressed colours. I'm not 100% sure what species this is. I got it at IKEA once. Oh, there's a little skink in the pot. Hello, little buddy. Can you see that? Anyway, I'll try not to terrify you too much. What you'll find is that this plant, you can see, I put out in direct sun in the summertime and it brought out those bright reds. What's happening is it's getting rid of the chlorophyll inside the plant to help it cope with that excess of sun. End result is you get these bright red leaves. And that's true for pretty much all of the Haworthias. You can induce them into these fantastic colorations by giving them really strong light. I've since moved it back into a shady position and you can see the new growth at the tips here is green, ready to take in that light and happily continue growing. So I keep saying these are really forgiving plants, and you can see why. They can take too much moisture, they can survive long periods without any water whatsoever, and if you get the lighting wrong, they'll adapt to survive that too. Fantastic plants for beginners. I cannot stress it enough. How good is that? So that's all you need to know really to keep Haworthias happy. But let's say you want to make more of them. Let's say, for argument's sake, you want to become a bit of a Haworthia farmer. Well, let me share with you now how easy it is to propagate these plants. You can do it with seeds, which is a far more difficult proposition. I'm not going to go too much into that, but you can certainly buy seeds online and they grow quite happily and easily. But they also grow really happily from cutting. Now this guy, this is well neglected, long overdue a pot, and you can see it's got all these pups coming off, which is pretty cool. But why not share with you how I can take a little growth like this, a little offset, stick it into soil and get myself a whole new plant. So let's take this out of the pot, see what's going on under the soil. I reckon this hasn't been out of this pot in about 5 years. The soil is probably well exhausted by now. Look at those roots, fantastic. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to find my pup. Oh, these roots are so tangled. Let me just get the dirt off and I'll be back. Alright, we're back with a plant that's roots are now denuded of dirt and soil. And you can see we've just got these 4 little offsets all emerging from a central point. Now you don't have to be delicate here. Let's say I want to take this offset here. I'm just going to get it and give it a tug. Bang! You can see it comes off with its own set of roots. It's also got a couple of its own little offsets forming at the base. Fantastic. We're going to have a big one here in no time. In fact, why don't we keep going? Bang. Bang. And now, where once I had 1 plant, now I've got 4. All it takes now, we take our pot. Where did I put my pot? There it is. We take our pot, shove those roots in, and using exactly the same mix that I planted that Haworthia argenteo maculosa in, I'm going to pot this guy up in now too. It becomes quite clear that you don't have to be overly gentle with these plants when you're working with them, because they're probably a lot tougher than we are. Now again, I could give that a bit of top dressing if I wanted to, but I'm just going to leave it like that. And what will happen in time is that this new pup that's growing on the side here, that'll emerge, this one will grow out the side, and you'll have a multi-headed fantastic little plant, just like I had originally as well. But I'll have 4 of them. How exciting is that? So Haworthias, they're super hardy, hey? And that means you can do all sorts of things with them. Like I said, you can grow them indoors. I've got a whole bunch planted out in my garden that are going absolutely gangbusters. They love the Sydney climate. All I would suggest is keeping them out of the frost. I don't know that it'll kill them. I suspect that they're probably not going to be too happy about it. But if you've got experience with frost and Haworthias, drop a comment on the video and let us know how they go, because I suspect they're not going to be too happy. But I don't get frost here anyway, so I don't know from first-hand experience. Now, I promised to share with you some of the more interesting Haworthia cultivars and species, and so let's have a look at some of them, the things that you can go out and start adding to your collections and growing with all of those techniques that I just shared. Now, I did share with you Haworthia argenteo maculosa as well as Haworthia truncata, but there are some other amazing species well worth growing, and some of my favourites include Haworthia malgarnii, which is another flat-topped variety like truncata. You've also got Haworthia picta, whose leaves and windows come with all these amazing colours and patterns, and Haworthia springbok blacensis. Say that 6 times fast and see how you go, which have got these really interesting, they call them like eagle claw marks on the leaves. But where the real magic happens with Haworthias are in some of the cultivars. There are many variegated forms on the market. Haworthia truncata variegata comes in some really quite spectacular forms, and then all these different hybrids which have been grown all over the world, and they've been propagated either through cutting or through tissue culture to spread far and wide. And if you go out looking hard enough, you can find just the most beautiful specimen plants to add to your collection, which you've been seeing on the screens, hopefully right beside me. So that's Haworthias for you. I hope you found this really interesting, and I hope if you've never grown Haworthias before, this is going to give you a gentle nudge in their direction. And if you're trying them out for the first time, hopefully this will give you the knowledge, the know-how to succeed and help your plants thrive. If you've got any questions, chuck them into the comments. I'm always happy to assist. In the meantime, I'm Michael. This is Arid Zine. Have a great week of growing, and I'll see you next time.